First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this afternoon. This is Michael McGuire, and today we're going to cover the service clock that, I'm sorry, not service clock, actually the TOD clock inside some of our wall ovens. And the one we're going to cover today is the VDOF 730. That's the French door double wall oven, which has a service clock in it. So let me go ahead and get my screen up and get everybody looking at what I want to look at. First of all, before we begin today's couple things we'll talk about. This webinar is being recorded, and when it is finished, it's going to be available online. It'll be sent to each and every one of you that's registered today. Please mute your microphones. If you have any questions, at some point I'll stop and ask you if you have any questions, but if something you got to ask right away, go ahead and hit your chat button, and Bryant will stop me and let me know that there's a question. And also at the end of the webinar today, you will get a survey from us. So, I think it's a 5-question survey. So, all right. So going forward, we're going to talk about the diagnostics that are built into our wall ovens, and what we call the TOD, which is the time of day. That's what they always refer to the clock. It has built-in diagnostics. So on a VDOF 730s, VDOS 730s, also in the RVS 0330s, we have that clock, and the VDOE and the VSOE 130. So anything that has that clock has these diagnostics built into it. I'm going to show you how to access it and how you can just test this oven. Walk in the house. You don't even have to open your toolbox to diagnose this whole range. Tomorrow, if you're interested, I'm going to be covering the service clock, because we realized a few years ago that the same boards that are in the wall ovens with a clock are the same boards that are in a range. And obviously the range does not have a clock on it. So we came up with a service clock, which you can use it to diagnose the ranges. And we're going to cover that tomorrow. Okay, so first of all, VDOS 730, VDOF 730. If you're working on this unit at any time, you want to download the manual that I show up here, and that the arrow shows it's SMC-0047, F as in Frank. That's the service manual for this unit. So we advise you to go to Docimoto to get it. Now, talking about Docimoto, there are a few service items on that. One of them is PowerPoint that a lot of people are not aware of. Several years ago, I put this together to go step by step to bring everybody through how to actually use these diagnostics. And it's interactive, so you got to touch the button on the screen when you're prompted to, and you'll see what the clock actually does. Another thing, when you're in Docimoto, if you look at right in the top center, in red, I have the section circled there, and it says contains in it. That box usually defaults to exact, and you want to change that whenever you're searching in Docimoto, because if you hit a wrong key or something, it'll still be a little a little grateful to you and get you to where you need to be a little easier. So to get the PowerPoint presentation, you want to go ahead and hit the Viking button that you see. Hello? Okay. Once you hit the Viking button, so again, let's go back there. You hit the Viking button, and then you see all your selections: refrigeration, kitchen cleanup. Hit cooking. Okay. Now, when you get in cooking, up top, you see if you type in the word diagnostics, okay? You type in the word diagnostics, what you're going to get is you're going to get this screen. This screen comes up. Anything that's related to the word diagnostics in Docimoto is going to populate here, and you see there's 107 results. Fortunately, the first one that shows up at the very top is the VDOF 730 diagnostic training. So what you want to do is you would click on that link, excuse me, and then you're going to get this screen, and it says click to download. So you can download this to your laptop, and once it's downloaded, you can go through it step by step on how to use it. Now, if you don't have PowerPoint, it's no problem, because PowerPoint, Microsoft has created a PDF viewer, I'm sorry, a PowerPoint viewer, which you can download from the Microsoft website. And that way you can look at ours PowerPoints or anybody else's PowerPoints if you haven't been able to do so in the past. So when you open up this PowerPoint, I show you two arrows. That's two places where you can start the program, the training, and it'll prompt you to go through each screen and show you how to get to each mode. So if you haven't seen this before, this is really helpful out in the field. So I wanted to point that out to you. We're going to get to calibration in a minute, but what I wanted to do is actually go to the unit and let's get up on the screen. Okay, so what we have here is we have the control panel for the VDOF 730, and we're focused on the left side of the control panel. You see that's the upper oven, and in the right-hand side, you see the actual clock, okay? So what I want to show you is we're going to go, first of all, go to the clock for a second and zoom right in on the clock. All right, so in the diagnostics, the first thing you need to do is to get into what's called the settings button. The settings program. The settings program is something that you need to get into to advance the diagnostics, but the consumer can also get in there to make a couple of selections based on their usage. So, for example, you see you've got minute timer over here. You got bake time. You got your set knob. You got start time, and you got probe. Okay, some of the older units don't have this night light feature. This happens to be with the lighted bezels, and in all the documentation, it'll always show you these four buttons. Some earlier ovens, these markings were a little different, but it's the buttons that are the most important. So if you wanted to, you could say this is button 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, all right. So to get into the settings, it says to change, you got to press and hold the minute second timer button, and you hold it for 3 seconds. I don't know if you can hear the beeps, but it'll give you hold it for 3 seconds. Out will come this, which you see is NLT. Again, on the earlier units, you'll see degrees Fahrenheit. What this is shows you that it's set to no. It's not programmed for the night light feature. If the customer wants the night light feature, they simply go here. Oh, no, sorry. Night light feature. They hit that button and you see I turned it on. So right now the customer could go in there, set this up, use the night light. Let's see. There you go. So now that's programmed in for the night light feature. So to go back in, again, press and hold. And I want to turn the night light feature off again. Okay. So now the next thing is Fahrenheit Celsius. So we can have this unit to be displayed when doing diagnostics in either Fahrenheit or Celsius. Okay. And this is something that the consumer is allowed to do, especially if they're using the meat probe, and they're used to Celsius, they can use Celsius. Next one is the type of clock. Is it a 12-hour clock or is it a 24-hour clock? Some people like the 24-hour clock where, 1 o'clock is 1500 and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, 1300. Get that wrong. So anyways, that's that setting there. The next one is for Sabbath. Anybody that has customers that practice the faith and they celebrate the Sabbath, it's defaulted to no, which means it's not going to be in Sabbath mode. But if the consumer presses this, now you can see the Sabbath mode is on. And so now whenever they use the oven, if they open up the door while it's cooking, the lights will not come on and the fans will not stop. If the convection fan or cooling, if any of the fans are on or the heating, it will not stop. And finally, showroom mode. And now consumers won't use the showroom mode, but we have seen some units that every once in a while they have an electrical storm or something happens, and for some reason the board defaults to showroom. There's no explanation of it. So you get a service call that the oven's dead. You go there, you start checking everything out, and you got voltage, and sometimes you may order a board or something. The whole thing is the clock set for showroom mode. So always make sure that the showroom mode is not on, it is off. And then finally, the unit says it's done. So, all right, so the customer would get out of settings, but for you guys in service, you're going to start out again in settings. All right, now we're going to go one step further. As soon as we're in this mode, now the next thing you would do is if I hold bake time and start time at the same time, just hold it. See a number 2 comes up in the display. Okay, that means that this is a double oven. The clock knows it's a double oven, so it's operating a double oven. If I go like that and set it to a single oven and then lock that in, then what happens is the clock doesn't see the lower oven, doesn't function properly. So that's another thing. When you replace a clock, it comes defaulted for a double oven, and the instruction sheet tells you go into this mode, change it to a 1 or a 2, depending on what you're in. Now you've got offsets for the upper oven and the lower oven. We're going to get into that a little bit. This is how, when we get to calibration, this is where you want to be. And then you're done. But at this point, we're going to go back and, excuse me. We're going to go back into settings mode. This time, instead of pressing bake time and start time, we're going to push and hold the probe button. We hear 3 beeps. We're going to hear another beep, 1 beep. And then within 5 seconds, I got to hit start time, probe, start time. So now see, it didn't work because I timed out. So let's try it again. So I'm going to go ahead and press and hold the probe button. Start, I had to beep, probe, start. Okay. So now when you see this, you are in service diagnostic mode. And the first screen you see is the software version of the TOD clock. If they make any changes or add any features, obviously that number changes. My documentation that I'm reading off of right now, that number was U12 at one point. So they've made several changes in the last few years. This you'd only need is if somebody on tech line says, hey, can you tell me what version clock's in that unit? If there's an issue, you can get to this and tell the tech line, hey, it's a version 27. They may say, oh, well, you need a 30 or something. But anyways, that's what this is right now. This is going to tell you the version. Next thing is going to tell you the frequency. Obviously, in North America, we're at 60 cycle. I have had situations where somebody's got a generator at 50 cycle and it doesn't function properly, but this is going to tell you the actual frequency coming in. Now you got EOC4 upper oven, EOC4 lower oven. What is EOC4? That's electrical operating control. That's the main board. On this unit, you got 2 boards, one for the lower, one for the upper, and you got a power supply board. This is the actual board that has all the relays on it to operate everything. So we got EOC4 upper, and we go EOC4 lower. So if you're going to a house to diagnose the lower oven, you want to be at this point right here. So I'm going to start up at the upper oven here, and now I'm going to press the minute set time. Okay. Now this is telling me the software version on the EOC4, the operating board. Again, like the UI, this number changes whenever they do upgrades, and you may be asked at some point, what's the version of the software you work with? You can go ahead and tell the tech line. All right, so that's the version of the software. The next thing you have is RTD. So RTD actually is your oven temperature sensor. And when I hit the activated button, it's telling me that right now inside that oven, it's 78 degrees. If the customer's having an issue with it not cooking, and let's say that number there was 450, the RTD is defective. It's thinking it's 450, whereas the oven cavity is cold. All right, the next one is going to be meat probe. Okay, so I don't have a probe with me, but if I plug the probe in the socket and I hit that button, the probe should read, especially if the probe sat in this oven after about a little bit of time, it should say 78 degrees, just like the oven cavity. If it says 400, you got a bad probe. Probe. Okay. The next one is going to be your selector switch. Okay. So over here, you've got your oven function selector switch, and then you got your thermostat right here. So at this point, we're on the CSEL. I'm going to activate the minute second timer, and you see it says 00. Why does it say 00? Because I got the selector switch in the off position. If you turn it to the first position, which is bake, you get a 3-digit number that comes up first. That's the actual potentiometer reading, okay, on that unit, in the controller. The number 1 that pops up after a few seconds is saying you're in position 1 and you're reading about 479. Those numbers can fluctuate just a bit, but that's about where it should be, about 479. And actually, the sheet I'm looking at that's 10 years old said the same thing, 479. So that's about where you should be. I have seen a couple times in the past where customer complains the convection bake doesn't work. Well, if I go to convection bake, you can see that that number changes to 421, and then the first number changes to a 2, because that's position 2. If I said 00 right now, then that means we got a defective selector switch. And I have seen technicians replace EOC4 boards because of a function not working, whereas it's actually in the selector switch. So you can go all the way to the proof position on this, and you can see it changed to a number 9. And there's your number in there. So right now, this selector switch is functioning properly, so we're good to go. All right, the next is going to be the thermostat, and it works on the same premise as the selector switch. When I activate it, the thermostat's in the off position, okay? If I rotate the knob to, let's say, 350, okay? And of course, I'm using a line of sight, so I'm just making a little hair turn. You can see it's coming. But the main thing is, let's say the customer says the oven's not heating right, and it's shutting off prematurely, and you go to this point for 350, and it says, let's say 200 in there, or 250. You got a bad thermostat. Okay, so we could check the RTD and check the thermostat from the clock. Okay, and then if I go to broil, it's going to be about 550, and clean's going to be about 820. Okay, so there again, you can check your thermostat right from the diagnostics. Okay, so now the next thing is going to be AD, which is analog to digital converter. This has been in the software for, God, I think 20 years. The purpose was to add something to the software where you would go in this mode and hit the button, and it tells you a number, but we have nothing. It's just 00 right now. So in all the literature, we tell you just skip this AD and just go forward. Okay. Now we're at the point where we're going to check the elements. Now this unit has 5 elements in it. When I say 5 elements, you get a broil, a bake, and a convection. But the bake is 2 coils and the broil is 2 coils. So the first one is inner bake. Now this EOC4 board has a built-in amperage sensor. So when I activate the button, it's going to tell me that inner bake element is drawing 6.1 amps. If the element was defective, it would be down to 0. Now in this building that I'm in, it's about 208 volts. So that's going to change your amperage slightly, but at least you can tell that the element is working within specs. The outer broil, outer bake, basically the same thing, 642. And the inner broil is going to be about 7.9 roughly. And the outer is about the same. 779, 709, 689. Okay. But again, you can see as I go through, when I get to the convection element, we're drawing about 12 amps. So you can check your elements to see if they're working right from the clock. Now, the next thing is our convection fan. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware that the way our convection fan is designed, it's a 2-speed, 2-direction. So when you're cooking, some recipes call for low fan, some call for high fan. And in our ovens, when the fan comes on and it turns in a clockwise position, after about 55 seconds, it will stop, slow down, then rotate in the opposite direction. And it'll go back and forth and do that. I had a tech ask me earlier today, why do we do that? Well, the reason we do that is some manufacturers use 2 fans to accomplish this. two fan motors, we use one, and by rotating it like that, we get more even temperatures, especially when you're cooking in convection multi-layer. So convection fan high, again, I don't know if you're gonna be able to hear it, but I'll open up the door. When I turn it on, now the fan is running at high speed. Okay. Now, if I go to the next click, it's convection fan low speed. So now it's checking it at the low speed, which you probably can't tell over the phone, over the computer, but it is a slight difference in sound and in speed. So now we can check the opposite direction, but they don't put all the both forward and backwards in the same area because they don't want the technician to go right to the next one and cause the fan to overheat. So they put a couple other tests in between each convection fan test. So the next one is going to be a cooling fan. Now this is a 2-speed cooling fan in this unit. And when I activate it, again, I can hear the fan, I can feel air coming out of the vent, and I can tell that I'm on high speed, okay? Now I can go to the next one, which is low speed. Now I can hear it. It's very faint, but again, I can tell both fans are working, so we have no problem with that. That's the upper fan we're checking. Okay. Now the next thing is our fan motors have Hall effect sensors, which basically measure the speed, the rotations. And on the high speed fan, okay, when I activate it, you can see I'm running about 5,900 RPMs on the high speed fan. Okay, and when I go to the low, maybe about 440, almost 436, 35. So you can see that you could check the fan first if it's operating, and B, if it's operating, what the speed is. If the speed is supposed to be at 36 and it's at 15, then there's something wrong with the fan. It's not spinning fast enough, even though it's running. So you can do pretty much, I'll diagnose all that, the fan system. Now to the light, okay, when I turn the light button on, okay, what it's doing is, and again, I don't want to move my camera down and juggle you around, but right now the oven cavity lights are on. We're just running the lights, not through the door switch. We're just making sure that the relay on the board closes, turns the lights on and off, and it is turning the lights on. So I can see that. Okay, now here we're back to our convection fan, and we're doing the other. We're going to start with convection fan low reverse. And then I'll go to high. So you get the idea of that we can check the fan completely. Now next is latch. Okay, I'll just switch very quickly to the lower oven because on the VDOF 730, the upper oven, the French door oven, it does not have self-clean. So you hit the latch, it's only going to just say unlocked because there's no lock there. So it defaults to that. The next one is HLED. What that's going to do, what that's going to do is when I hit the button, it's going to turn on, make sure the oven light, the cycle light is working. Okay. If it's not, then you either got a bad light or if the customer says the light doesn't work, well, yeah, it's working. We can see it's working. Next thing, same thing for the clean light. We can check the clean light, make sure the clean light's working. If it doesn't light, pull the panel, put your voltmeter. It's either the light or you're not getting it through the board. All right, door switch. Okay, so when I activate this, what I do is it says close right now. If I open the door, you can see it says open. So this, if there's something wrong, the lights don't come on, you open up the door and all that, and you want to know if it's the board or if it's the door switch, this right here will tell you that the switch is working. Okay. All right, and then we've got the light switch, which is on a control panel here. So it's off right now. If I push this button here, you see it's on. So if the lights are not coming on and you don't know if it's the board or if it's the door switch or what, you can check each component individually and isolate the circuits. Okay, now we're done. All right. So like I said about the latch, let's see, I'm going to go back. I went all the way back to the beginning of the EOC4, but I'm going to go to the lower oven and I'm going to scroll ahead pretty quickly here. The latch. Okay. Now the lower oven is self-clean. So when I hit it, what happens is, and of course you can't hear it over the computer, but I could barely hear the latch motor turning. And what it will do is it'll activate the latch motor. The latch will come and close. When it hits that switch and the door is locked, it's going to show you on the display. It's going to say locked. So again, if the customer says that the lower latch is not working, now you see right there, it just changed to lock the door. I can't open up the door. The door is locked. Okay, now I want to open the door to see if the advanced switch is working. So what I'm going to do is you have to hit this button to get out of it, then enter it again. And what it's going to do is it's going to start the motor to go to unlock. Do we have any questions at this point? So the 3 dashes is when it's almost done. You're just going to see that because it doesn't see the switch right now. So it keeps turning the motor till it says unlock. So again, we just checked the lock motor and it's functioning fine. So to recap on diagnostics, as you can see, you can check all your elements, your selector switch thermostat, your indicator lights, your switches, your latch motor, your fans. Again, it checks every component in this unit and you haven't even opened up your toolbox. So it's a very good tool to have. And like I said, tomorrow's webinar is covering, we developed a service clock that we can use this technology on the ranges, whereas right now you don't have anything on the ranges because there's no clock. So, but that will be tomorrow. Okay, so that was all right, so calibrating these ovens. First of all, what I want to show you is there's a video that goes into depth on how to do this, and I'm actually going to play it for you. It's only a little 5-minute video. That's what we're going to finish up with. But you can see that on Docimoto, it covers all those models as far as diagnosing the clock. So I mean diagnosing the temperatures, so calibration. So I'm going to play a little video for you. This service video will demonstrate the procedures required in calibrating all Viking wall ovens utilizing the TOD3 controller. For the purpose of this video, we have utilized a VDOF 730. While adjusting the temperature, please refer to the following service manual, which you will find on the Viking Docimoto website. Testing the oven temperature. Open the oven doors and make sure the rack is in the center of the oven cavity. Slide the rack out and attach the temperature test lead to the middle of the oven rack. Slide the rack back into the cavity and close the doors. Turn the selector switch to bake and the thermostat to 350 degrees. The oven cycle light will illuminate and the oven will start to heat. Observe the oven temperature meter. The temperature should begin to climb. The initial preheat time is approximately 10 to 15 minutes. When the oven cycle light goes off, begin to record a minimum of 4 cycles to get your average temperature. The following is an example of how to properly test an oven to see if it requires calibration. The light cycles off initially at 345 degrees for our first cycle. The unit will now begin to cool down. The light cycles on at 298 degrees for our first cycle. The unit will begin to heat up. The second cycle goes off at 345 degrees. The second cycle goes on at 299 degrees. The third cycle goes off at 346 degrees. The third cycle goes on at 299 degrees. The fourth cycle goes off at 348 degrees. And the fourth cycle goes on at 301 degrees. Now add all 8 temperatures and divide by 8. The oven is averaging 322.6 degrees when set to 350. Calibrating the oven. Press and hold the minute-second button for 3 seconds until you see NLT in the display. Press and hold both the bake time and start time buttons until you hear 3 confirmation tones. Continue holding until you hear 1 confirmation tone. A number 2 in the display indicates you are working on a double oven. If a single oven, 1 will be displayed. Rotate the set knob clockwise and you will see offset upper oven. Push the minute-second button and the display will show 0F. Note, if anything else is displayed except 0F, then someone has already accessed the calibration mode. In our example, the oven was running 30 degrees too low, so we need to adjust the offset plus 30 degrees. Rotate the set knob clockwise until 30 degrees is in the display. To save the changes, press the minute-second button. To exit the calibration mode, press the probe button. Recheck, and the temperature will have went from 320 degrees average to 350 degrees average. To calibrate the lower oven, follow the previous steps until you see the screen below. Rotate the set knob once for offset upper oven. Rotate the set knob again for offset lower oven. Press the minute-second button. If the lower oven is 30 degrees too hot, rotate the set knob counterclockwise to -30F to calibrate. Press the minute-second button to save the changes. Press the probe button to exit. Calibration complete. This concludes our service video. Okay, so that's basically the procedures that you want to do to properly check the oven. Now, a lot of times servicers say, I can't spend the time to sit there and watch this thing go up and down. You can save some time by, if you go to a customer's home and check their oven temperatures, call them in advance if you can. Tell them to put the rack in the middle of the oven and set the oven for 350. That way, when you get there, at least it's been heating for a while. And then you can kind of more or less see where your average is at that point, because by the time you get there, you know, wherever it's cycling off at, you can see where it's different from the actual temperature that we're looking for. So, any questions at this point on calibration? If there are no questions, everybody, thank you for attending.